We interrupting you?
You're kidding me? What the hell is that?
My children. It's called...
Pull to open.
Pull to open.
Yes, and what do? You're just a long streak of nothing.
Make it complicated. I just want a mate.
You just want to mate.
Okay.
I'm ready.
There we are then.
I can come.
Here come the drums!
Hello and welcome to Pull to Open, an ongoing quest to watch all of Doctor Who, the entire television program in random order. I'm Pete Paschal.
And I'm Pete Paschal's partner in crime, a.k.a. Chris Taylor. And yes, we are a couple of random adventurers, a couple of random rogues who have not been much on our random adventure lately because we have been recording hot takes on episodes like Rogue, which is the most recent one that we've seen in our timeline, in case you're wondering why we're not currently losing our minds over that thing that was revealed in Empire of Death, the season finale. My God, how could we not be talking about that? Well, we're not there yet, right, Pete?
It's almost as if we in the podcast are wandering around ourselves and we just keep missing each other. We're kind of over here in the current season. We're kind of over there in our random quest, and we just don't ever seem to meet in the right time and place. It's strange.
Do you know what? I totally forgot to mention this when we were off the air. We could totally have done this open where one of us kind of keeps popping up and talking and then disappearing. Then the other one appears. Like we keep walking on from different sides of the frame, just completely not noticing each other. Anyway, we'll giving you... We'll fix it in post. We can do this. We'll just ask ChatGPT, ask Sora. We'll just be able to automate this sort of thing shortly. But yeah, we are wandering around each other. We're giving you a very strong hint on where we've ended up today, in case you didn't read the episode description. But Pete, do you want to catch the folks up on where we were before this?
Well, previously on Pull to Open, we were, of course, popping up and down all around the Doctor's timeline, as we always do. And 3 stories ago, we were in the Capaldi era, of course, the Randomizer's favorite Doctor, going back to the frost fairs of London and the racism of the time in Thin Ice.
Set in 1814, and wasn't Rogue was set in 1813, as I remember.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So a little bit of a foreshadowing there. And then come to think of it, we already made this connection, but we went to Thin Ice before Dot and Bubble.
Indeed.
Appeared. So, there was a lot of
new season connections
on the brain of the randomizer around the time,
right?
So we needed something a little lighter after that, I think. And we went back to an era that the randomizer doesn't go to that often, probably because it was fairly short if you count the number of stories, which of course was the Sylvester McCoy era, Doctor number 7, and his third adventure in Delta and the Bannermen.
Delta and the Bannermen, yes, set in Wales, set in rural Wales, the only Doctor Who story to actually be filmed in rural Wales, and we happen to go there right around 73 yards. I mean, how Welsh horror spooky is that? Yeah,
that's it. So that one, but they're both filmed in rural Wales, right? Not the only one. And so that only one until now.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I got you. Okay, then. So
and do you know what? I only realized this when I listened to the Delta and the Bannermen podcast, because we make requests of the randomizer at the end of every podcast.
We do.
And you, Pete, said that after Delta and the Bannermen, which contains a lot of music, and of course Devil's Chord was on our mind at the time as well, you said, take us to an episode, and you used this exact wording, and I groaned when I realized that the randomizer is a dad joke. Use this exact wording. Take us to an episode where music is a factor.
Oh my God, I did say that, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
That is, it's just like ChatGPT to fixate on the last thing you said.
Yes, the last word that you said.
I'm kind of half paying attention and ignoring you, but you said factor?
Yeah. What was that, factor? Oh, okay. Let's go there.
And certainly, speaking of season finales, it went all the way back to the final story in the Key to Time arc, the Armageddon Factor.
Right, the birthplace of the Randomizer. Where the Randomizer is fitted to evade the Black Guardian. The Randomizer wanted to go back to its birth. It satisfied both of our requests. Music is a factor in the factor. Just very, very clever joke. We see what you did there, Randomizer. But also my request was for a tin dog. Tin dog. Got a tin dog.
You got your wish. And obviously that put the Randomizer, after visiting its own origin story, in the mood for new beginnings. And it rocketed us forward in time to towards the end of the David Tennant era. We have come to Series 4, Episode 1, Partners in Crime.
Boom. Do you know what happens if you put two sonic devices together? Let's find out later in the podcast. Let's do it.
Give it right at the camera.
All right, we'll get there.
Oh, look at you.
We'll get there. But first,
for something.
Compensating for something. Regeneration, it's a lottery. I'm sort of waving this aggressively, like I'm going to assemble a cabinet at you, because I get the sense that you're about to torture me. And I got some things to say about the last torture session. Okay.
Well, then let's just cut right to it. We're going into the Whomoji challenge.
Yes, the Whomoji challenge, which I'm waiting for a ruling from Amnesty International on whether we're allowed to call it the Whomoji challenge if it is in fact legally torture. So last time we did the Whomoji challenge, the story was Caves of Androzani, one of the best known stories in the history of Doctor Who, and because I have not seen it for 40 years, I did not remember that there was bat milk in it. And there have been people screaming at me as they listen to the podcast, screaming at me. One friend of the show, Dave Kitchen, even screamed it at me on Twitter as he was listening with a LOL emoji. Love you, Dave. Saying it's obviously the one with bat milk, like it's. But the thing is, here's the thing, dear listeners. I went on this pull to open journey in part as a way to cut down on my Doctor Who viewing, to stop this constant fear of like, I need. There are so many I haven't seen. I need to watch. No, I'm just going to go on this random adventure now. Extracurricular activity is forbidden by the Randomizer. We know this. Because as soon as I watch an extracurricular, the Randomizer goes there. This has happened in the past. Look up many, many old episodes, Magician's Apprentice being the major example. But so I'm trapped here in a world where I can't say go back to Caves of Androzani for the first time in 40 years and remember that there was bad milk in it I can't until the Randomizer takes us there. I'm a prisoner. And that's why this is a torture session, because I am a prisoner of the Randomizer. I'm not able to watch any other Doctor Who. But okay, I guess that also makes it very fine entertainment.
I'm genuinely surprised you haven't seen it in like 40 years or however many years, because it is such a classic. Like, I do revisit it every now and then and have. I actually don't do it that much because it is such a banger. At least that's how I remember it. I haven't done it a ton, but I have done it, and it's like bat's milk. It's like it's a line. It's repeated. Perry says it. I'm just stunned that didn't give it away.
I remember the beginning. I remember the end. I remember the dude with the mask. I remember how dirty Peter Davison's coat got, and of course I remember the regeneration. But I failed to remember anything else.
Well, let's get on with the torture, at least until the Shadow Proclamation or whatever centralized body comes in and decides this is, in some ways, illegal or perhaps recommended.
Definitely recommended for you, dear listener. Please enjoy, including me in the future. I do enjoy my own torture.
If this is your first time, this is the point in the show where I describe emojis that represent a Doctor Who story, and Chris will guess what story that is. Now, each and every one of these Whomojis is user submitted, listener submitted. It's you guys that are powering this segment, and I just want to give a shout out to Effie Eldon on Instagram, who has shared us this one. And here's how it's going to go. Are you ready, sir?
Okay, so this is not what I was expecting. We had last week's was from CT Tig,
Right.
and you're holding those in your back pocket because it seems CT Tig goes for the plot rather than the name.
Yeah. CT Tig has a few more, and we're going to get back to them, but I want to mix it up a bit. I want to make sure everyone who's been submitting Whomojis in the last little while knows that we've seen them. We have seen them, and we're going to get to all of them. Trust me. Oh, and I'm going to delight in that.
Oh.
So this one, again, this came at us from Effie Eldon on Instagram, and I'm going to go into it right now. Are you ready, sir?
Ready.
4 emojis. First emoji, a key. Second emoji, an hourglass.
Okay.
Third emoji, a plug.
Okay.
Fourth emoji, a squid. I'm going to drop this in the chat so you can have a look.
It's not Keys of Marinus, or is it?
It's not Keys of Marinus.
Right, because we've done Keys of Marinus, as I believe, as a Whomoji. And it's, I mean, key and hourglass. I was thinking, like, we can't. That's just the Key to Time series. Okay, that's a hint. That's a hint.
Just making noises over here.
Okay, now I just need to go through all of the Key to Time series. This is great. Squid. I mean, I haven't seen all Key to Time.
Interesting. So then you don't know it. Okay.
Yeah. Was it? Oh God, what was it called? Power of Crawl.
Crawl. That's like the thing. All the swampies in that episode. That's the thing. That's what they yell at. Crawl. Crawl. Power crawl. Of course, the power crawl. You got the power plug. You got the squid. That's all you need.
Got it.
The
Okay.
Key to Time stuff is the hint.
Yes.
You know, the key and the time. Like, you don't even really need that. That's sort of the hard version would have just been the last 2 emoji.
This is why it's torture. It's because of all the PTSD of the previous Whomoji. I'm like, that looks too obvious. Like, I can't trust it. I'm having a reaction. Anyway, thank you.
I wanted to make sure you had one that I thought you could get. I don't know. I'm never a good judge of the ones that you're going to get, so I wasn't 100% sure. But I kind of thought this one would be a good little reprieve from the longer ones.
Thank you, Effie. Thank you, Effie. May the odds ever be in your favor.
And you can be just like Effie, and the best place to submit Whomojis is actually through the Apple reviews. We see all of the reviews, and we read each and every one, and you could leave it in the title of your review, in the body of your review. You could leave just the Whomoji. We'll get it. Don't worry. You don't even have to specify it's a Whomoji, but just if you have a good sense of what emojis would represent a Doctor Who title, go ahead and drop them in there. And if you want to look at the ones that we have had already, go ahead and check out our Pull to Open Codex, which we link in the show notes every single time. So not only will your Whomoji entertain listeners for one of our episodes, it will live forever. Open Codex with credit. We put the links into the reviews or the tweets or what have you. So go for it, man.
Yeah, and if you're on Spotify, also go for it and pull from the bottom of the screen. That's right, you'll see the poll to open where you can vote on what you think of Partners in Crime. If you don't even care about our commentary, you just want to vote right now, you can do that. This is normally the part of the show where we read out results of previous polls to open, but as the word hollybobs has now been enshrined in a Doctor Who legend with Rogue, we're going to say that poll to open is on its hollybobs. We're stretching stuff out here with the hot takes. We're going to a bit more of a bi-weekly schedule on the random takes. So yeah, we're gonna leave it a little bit. We will bring you. Don't worry, we will bring you the results. The preliminary results from Delta and the Bannerman. Don't forget, these polls stay open pretty much forever. Maybe not as long as your Whomoji will last in the Codex, but pretty much forever. So you can vote in them anytime. But yeah, we're just going to stretch it out. We're going to start reading out the results from, I guess, 3 stories ago next time. So yeah, look out for that in our next story. And Pete, how else can people support the show in the meantime?
Supporting the show is a great and easy thing to do on YouTube just by liking and subscribing on the video you are watching now. And if you'd like to deepen your relationship with the show, you can also become a true companion of the podcast. That's right. You can become a member of this channel, which will both get you our eternal thanks and the podcast a day early. So instead of Saturdays, you'll get it on Fridays. How about that? And if you don't want to go to the full monthly support level, you can always just give us a super thanks on any of our videos. That's a one-time thing. If you're not sure what that is, a one-time donation, we'd really appreciate it. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/pull-to-open, and even directly through Spotify if you'd like to voice a little financial support through there. We'd appreciate it wherever you want to do that, and we'll be bringing you more and more content.
All right. Is it time?
All right. It's time. This is it. It's time to make some crime.
Time for my other torture, which is should also be a crime. Yes, the other international war crime that we include regularly in every random episode of Pull to Open is called TLDW, Too Long Didn't Watch Too Long Doctor Who, where we take turns to summarize the story in a very short space of time. This week's apparently it's me, which I forgot that it's me.
And this is some very light torture. This isn't waterboarding at all, because this is this is a single episode of New Who.
Yeah,
I just came off Armageddon Factor, which was a solid 3 minutes of TLDW content. We allot 1 minute for every New Who episode to summarize the plot.
Right.
So you're going to have 60 whole seconds to summarize Partners in Crime. Are you feeling good about it?
Easy. This isn't torture. This is just strapping me down and extracting some fat. Letting it just walk away from my belly. But I wasn't prepared to do this, but I think I can manage. It's been a few days since I saw the episode.
We'll challenge you a little more, and I'll just squeeze this right into the camera and sort of like you're being interrogated because you're a criminal.
Yes,
that would probably be really annoying for all our viewers. So I'm not going to do that. But instead, I am going to begin the official Pull to Open summary of Partners in Crime in 3, 2, 1. Go.
The Doctor and Donna Noble, who's back on Earth after the events of Runaway Bride, are investigating the same company, Adipose Industries, company that says the fat will just walk away from its weight loss pill. And they're both investigating people who are taking these pills. Donna goes to this woman's house, and what happens is this woman completely collapses into fat. Fat is walking out of these people. It's just walking away. It's the Adipose, cute little babies. It's there's plenty more to this investigation. They go on missing each other for a long time, but they both get this little chain necklace thing as part of their investigation, because they're literally in the same office at the same time. And then they both appear at night at the same time, and they have this conversation with each other across door and window right when a journalist named Penny has been kidnapped and be forced to reveal that this is actually an interstellar nursery, that the nanny, the CEO, is a nanny, and the Adipose just go up in the spaceship. Oh my goodness, I really just got lost in that scene, didn't I? Wow. The Adipose go up in the spaceship. The nanny is let go, literally let go by the Adipose royal family. And oh god, and then Donna goes on to travel in the TARDIS, and she leaves her keys in a bin and tells a woman to tell her mother that it's there, and the woman is Rose, and she disappears. Oh god, what shame have I brought upon?
30.
Yeah.
So I see why that happened, and I could sort of detect how this happening if I were to do it, which is that you really want to talk about the delightful misadventure, misdirection, and sort of back and forth with Donna and the Doctor. But honestly, that has nothing to do with the story. You know what I mean? It's a rabbit hole. Yep. It's just kind of the fun stuff to get these folks together, and we're going to talk a lot about that. But because the story is just pretty straightforward. They're both investigating, they get together, they try to stop them. Woman dies. Adipose leave. Doctor saves in London. Rose is there at the end, and they leave together.
Yeah, but there's more at that thing in the end. There's more of a twist in the end, to use RTD's favorite song. than is immediately apparent. And I would actually like to take my case to appeal on this. I'd like to take this TLW to the Shadow Proclamation, because I think the tape will show that you did lure me into kind of a false sense of security there. Because, you're right. It is just a very basic story. But there's so much that you have to say about that twist at the end, about the Donna, about Rose. I didn't even get to Donna, you just want to mate, making it clear that there will be no hanky-panky in the TARDIS this time, or not even a suggestion of it.
Again, not really relevant to the story, so I don't know.
I don't know. It's just like there's so many little things like that, little tire spikes that will trip you up in trying to describe, because they are in a sense important. Yeah, okay.
They're important to the show, and we're going to talk about them certainly. But it's like, if you're just summarizing the plot, I don't know.
All right, fine.
Forget the plot for a second. This is your season opener for Series 4, and it is a tone setter.
Yeah,
it is like, we're back. Not only are we back, we have Donna Noble coming back, which was obviously seen before in The Runaway Bride, which was we've done that one for the podcast.
We have.
Both found it amazing and a delightful Christmas Dalek. It was our essentially our rating, I believe. And this is tone, like, it sets the tone by bringing her back. It's like, obviously you're going to do comedy, right? And this is a comedic adventure. But
one in which Russell T Davies was very careful to not make it too comedic.
Right.
And it is sort of a bit too much in that direction already. But he knew that the critics would be like, oh, it's the Catherine Tate show. Like, if it's too comedic.
I think you're dead on. I think that the success or failure of this lies in getting the balance right. Because if we've seen before, if you go too far in the comedy, and I'd even argue some of the stuff recently would be indicative of this, thinking probably The Devil's Cord, that you kind of like get taken out of it a little bit, and you sort of like, wait a minute, if they're not taking this seriously, why should I? And it sort of starts to make you reconsider maybe tuning in the next week. Better example, Destiny of the Daleks, when we talked about that, which was probably too over the line, right? With the number of things
Douglas Adams.
The Daleks.
Yeah.
And there's some good jokes, but the general goofiness of it didn't really match what probably it needed to be. Here, I think the balance is much better, and I think it's necessary because we need more about Donna. We didn't get enough last time. She wasn't a wholly realized character.
We need Sylvia and we need Wilf, both who appear in great scenes.
Absolutely. And we need them to sort of bounce off Donna and emphasize their relationships with her, but also show like who she is and how she's been changed since she last met the Doctor. And I think all of that succeeds. I think all of those scenes are great. So whenever Catherine Tate is on screen with essentially someone else, whether it's Wilf, whether it's her mom, or whether it's Tennant, I think it's just a winning scene, and it tells you something new about the character. And for that reason, I think this is very, very entertaining, as both as a comedic story, but also just as like a thing that sets up this new relationship, this new Doctor companion relationship. So it definitely ticks all the boxes.
The most powerful scene in that respect, I think, is the scene where she's sitting at Donna is sitting at the kitchen table, and her mother fades in and out around her, and you're sort of led to understand that her mother is just always going on at her. And this, instead of haranguing you in a single scene, she's haranguing multiple scenes, while Donna has just not changed expression. She's still dreamily staring off, thinking of a potential life with the Doctor.
It's such a smart choice.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the director, who's James Strong, probably in consultation with Davies. But I think he makes some good choices here, and that's definitely one of them. That really emphasizes, like, who Donna is, who her family is, where she's from, what she's trying to get to. I don't know, like, specifically what she's trying to get to, but where her mind is at, where she, like, emotionally she wants to go, which is away from there, right? Yeah. She doesn't know exactly who she is. She knows what she's not,
Right.
And she doesn't want to be that.
And she goes away from her mother and towards Wilf,
Right.
which is so wonderful. And we shouldn't go too far without mentioning the wonderful actor Howard
Hatfield.
Yes, who played Donna's dad in Runaway Bride, and was sadly, you can go to the Doctor Who Confidential, you can see how sick he was at the read through. It's just heartbreaking as you hear him read through lines that we know are Wilf's lines in the final version. He talks about Venus and his little book, and yeah, it's rough. He was rough. He had not completed chemotherapy. He broke his leg at one point. Like it got really, really bad, and he died during production. So the decision to make Wilf from the Christmas special, from Voyage of the Dam, which is being filmed around about the same time as they're planning all this, as they're reading through this, into her grandfather, just so inspired. It was great that he stepped up, and that was something that survived from Penny. Penny was going to have a stargazing grandfather.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was the original idea.
The background here, there's a character here, the reporter named Penny Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost said Peggy Carter.
Right.
I believe the character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Correct.
But that was going to be the name of the new companion. Now, that character doesn't survive, but the name does. So the reporter is named Penny Carter. I guess they just thought it was a good name, and they gave it to her. But yeah, interesting you mentioned. So like there's some of the stuff with the Runaway Bride they talk about in the commentary on this one. And apparently Runaway Bride was pretty much all done at this point. Oh, sorry, not Runaway Bride. Voyage of the Dam.
Voyage of the Dam was pretty much done.
That was the first appearance of Wilf. And they briefly considered reshooting the scenes with Wilf in Voyage of the Dam because it's all just him. There isn't really a shot where his face is on screen at the same time as Tennant's and others. So they could have easily sort of slotted something in, done some reshoots and done it. But then it occurred to RTD that, oh, you know what, I could weave this into the arc.
Yeah. And
they did. And it's kind of brilliant. And not only is it weaved into the arc of this season, even when you get to the end of the specials, I think there's a lot of great scenes with Tennant and Bernard Cribbins, and one of them is when they're in the restaurant and Tennant's sort of wondering about him, like, what is with me and you? Like, you know, we're always together, like ever since I first met you in the Voyage of the Damned, it was like in that little stall or whatever. So that
RTD really pays attention to that stuff, doesn't he? I mean, in it, and I'd love to contrast it with the thing that we often see, say, in the McCoy era, where you know you had like super fans like making obscure references or getting the JNT bringing in the super fans, but let's make this obscure reference, this thing that nobody's going to care about 20 episodes earlier. RTD does that, but it's like it's recent enough for you to actually remember it, and it's like he likes to build on happy accidents like that, like the casting of Wilf, which is wonderful. And you really see that, by the way. We shouldn't also go too far without mentioning that the beginnings of Partners in Crime and the writing of Partners in Crime is detailed in the Writer's Tale. The wonderful book of emails between RTD and Benjamin Cook. And I was rereading this because I remember Penny. Like I still sort of hold a candle for Penny. Right? And it's
the companion, not the character.
Right? The companion. Right. Because like it's a bit like Pete, isn't it? In Thin Ice. Like R.I.P. Pete, the companion who never was. That for a timing rightly reason, this for a behind the scenes reason. So I remember Penny, but what I didn't remember rereading it was that this goes back to what RTD was thinking for Rose and pre-Rose, when he was just fantasizing of, if I ever get the call to reboot Doctor Who, this is what I'll do. And it was the idea of a companion being an office cleaner in a mystery office at night, and and something's going on in the basement. And is it dinosaurs? Is it computers? Is it people with their hands fused together? Was one of his ideas for a while, and then that became Autons, right? So you can see the Rose connection, but you definitely had it going back to the stargazing granddad of the companion. In that, like that's where this goes back. So you could say the origins of partners in crime goes all the way back to the very beginning of the new show.
Yeah, and it's kind of like RTD out his first 3 seasons, he got out of his system all the stuff he wanted to do on the sort of romantic side and the relationship stuff and exploring that with Rose and Martha. And here it's a bit of a reset. I mean, obviously it's a reset because it's a new companion and a new season, but it's also a lot of people hold season 4 up as their favorite of this era.
Yeah.
I think there's strengths and weaknesses of every season and but in terms of taste, in terms of what hews closest to what I think you might expect what Doctor Who would be if you grew up in the classic series, I think series 4 kind of epitomizes that, because it's almost like Davies has gotten all that sort of stuff out of his system and he's sort of resetting to, like, your point of like this, who the companion is and what that sort of stargazing wistfulness is, and encountering the Doctor and sort of the aptness of that, but without sort of the sort of extra stuff. Again, I'm not trying to criticize the extra stuff, because I do think that it was important for the show to go there. It was an important part of the show's evolution, and it was interesting to a large degree. But this is kind of like Davies. I guess I would say I'm not sure what the adjective is, but it's almost like the emblematic season of what Doctor Who would be.
Yeah. I think you're right. It contains so much, and it's partly because he wanted to build to bring everyone back. He knew this was going to be his last season finale, Journey's End, Stolen Planet, and he wanted to build to that and build to something where it would tie everything up, where everyone would be in that, everyone they could get back would be in that season finale. So again, he had that vague, lighthouse to navigate by. But it's interesting, talking about 4.1 as he calls it in the book. I'm just going to call it 4.1 instead of Partners in Crime. That it really is. It's kind of underrated as a show to bring in new viewers, as an episode to bring in new viewers. Like, you often go to Rose. Like, maybe you go to Smith and Jones, which also has a reboot feel, or the pilot, or like often we go to these season openers when we think of, like, I'll just jump into the show at insert episode here, right? 11th hour, classic example. New showrunner, new Doctor.
Did you say the pilot already? The pilot's good.
I did say the pilot, and this, I think, Partners in Crime is underrated as one of those, because it is done because. As fans, we're like, oh, well, she was in Runaway Bride, so you should watch that first, right? But not necessarily. Like, all you need to know is that she met the Doctor. And, only one line that references the Ragnos, where she talks about how he's a bit less of an avenging angel this time. He's not going to commit genocide this time on the adipose. Yeah,
she remarks that Martha did you good, or I forget what the line is. It's it's exactly that. That Martha must have done you good.
So that's the only thing. Other than that, it's like you start to get it. First of all, as a new viewer, you'd be sort of, sucked in by they keep missing each other. Isn't this wonderful comedy? They're obviously investigating the same thing. Why do they keep missing each other? So that's enough to hook you. And then the revelation that she's already met that they have a past. That's all you need to know. They have a past. She's had one trip with this guy. And that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, it is, like I say, the comedic sort of misdirections and everything that happens in the first act really is great. And it has the intended effect, I'll say, because I watched this with my daughter. We hadn't seen it in a while. And so I don't think she remembered a lot of it. And she even remarked like the frustration of like, so close. Like, she would just say that this is hurting, like, especially that shot from above where it's just the two of them on the street at night, and one's on one side of the block, and the other's on the other, and they go in opposite directions. So it really works. But of course, I think one of the almost better moments is when they're apart and they haven't met yet. And so we've already talked about Donna's side, that she's sort of with her mom and then goes to Wilf. But on the Doctor side, I like it almost equally as much, where he's just in the TARDIS and he's researching these adipose pendants, and he remarks something. He talks out loud. Oh, wow, it's just this thing or whatever. It's got this signal, and he looks up and no one's there.
Yeah,
and
such a strong moment.
It's such a great moment because there's nothing to punctuate it, and that's sort of the beauty of it. He just sort of stops, and he's just kind of like, "Oh, right."
Honestly, I think that moment is more powerful than the more Doctor Who you've seen, right? Because you hear that line, and you're sort of with the Doctor when he's saying that line. Like, we're trained to expect a companion to respond at that moment. It's such a, it clicks into grooves in our brain. And so I think it's almost as shocking for us, the old school fans, when he looks up and there's no one there. Like, oh, we also realize that we are missing something. We're missing our avatar. The Doctor's just a bit too alien without a human next to him.
And of course, they finally come together in what is, I would say, the most memorable scene in the entire thing.
Yep.
Everyone remembers this scene where they're both on opposite sides of the room. The Doctor's outside. Donna's is through the porthole window, which I don't know who's designing those doors, but it's I've never seen that in any office building I've ever been to, but it works. And they spot each other, and then they have this brilliant silent conversation, which, they're mouthing things so well, especially Tennant, I gotta say. Like, Tate is a little over the top, which is fine, because that's her character, because she's just like, oh my God. And then Tennant is a little, like, understated, and he's not really moving his lips as much in an exaggerated way, but you get every word. Especially he also, like, does the hand gestures, which help a lot.
He's also the straight man in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea. The RTD's original idea, he talks about in the writer's tale, was that it would be the monster reveal, that she wasn't even in the nanny at that stage when he came up with this idea, but it was just, a character was going to be revealed to be a monster, a typical Doctor Who moment. But he loved the idea of that monster reveal being utterly upstaged by the Doctor and Donna seeing each other for the first time. He's never really actually done that scene. And I would just say, RTD, call us, or rather RTD, look back on that and maybe pick that out of your own, trash heap of memory. Like, that's still yet to be done. Somehow upstaging a monster reveal, really playing with that trope, subverting that trope.
I think it's also hilarious that Tennant is in the same suit that he meant, and Donna mentions it. That there's just like, oh, like, you're just the same, and she's, even though they're running for their lives, like, she's loving it.
Yeah,
and it's just kind of like they suddenly right away they have this banter going on, and all the sort of frustration that, again, if you it all familiar, whether you've seen Runaway Bride or you're revisiting this years later, as we are, of like not seeing that great dynamic of the two of them together, finally getting back to it, is like, we're finally in it. This is it. This is Doctor Who.
Same suit is a very interesting line, isn't it? Because it's RTD being so confident about his writing skills at this stage that he's poking the fourth wall.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right? Because it's a bit like, it's a costume, and it does actually stretch credulity. The Doctor goes, simply wears the same thing time after time. Like, don't you take a shower, dude, other than in Spearhead in space?
Yeah, and honestly, that's a lot of what I would say this episode does in terms of getting you to overlook things like that. Like, because it's a more of a comedic structure, and we get pretty quickly that we're not supposed to take it 100% seriously. The very premise that they would sort of run into each other again in sort of a weird coincidence, which I guess I admit they sell it pretty well, because Donna's sort of become her own version of him in some ways to seek him out. So she's investigating things and just kind of doing whatever things that he would do in the hopes that she's going to run into him. And eventually she does, right? Although I would say this, it's kind of weird she wouldn't run into Sarah Jane first.
Right? Or right? Torchwood. Yeah.
And so doing that, but it's like, now we don't really have to care so much about it being a coincidence or unbelievable, because it's like, oh, we're already a step removed from serious Doctor Who, that we shouldn't worry too much about sort of details like that. So, a smart choice to go into the comedy mode right off the bat. Now, it's interesting to hear Davies talk about that, by the way, in terms of going full comedy, because he thought that a direction he could have gone in is subvert that expectation and go like something dramatic and do something sort of more dark or interesting with Donna when you bring her back, which they sort of kind of do in places throughout the season. Maybe where Fires of Pompeii arguably sort of goes there a little bit.
Turn Left definitely does. He had Turn Left in mind while he was writing this, which is interesting. It's also so. Let's segue to talking about the adipose in a second. But I do want to say just on that the fourth,
by the way,
adipose, the fourth wall breaking thing. Like it does it starts that trend, right? And I'm going to connect the two by talking about Penny, the R.I.P., the Never Companion. Penny was going to be the kind of companion who asks all the difficult questions. And it's funny because we've seen this before. Yeah, it's the character that ended up being Bill, which started off. We know this from Last Christmas when we went there. Stephen Moffat was going to introduce Shona from Last Christmas as the next character, as the Bill. Shona also very northern. The companion that Penny, the R.I.P. Never companion. Was also going to be northern, so it's going to be very much in the style of Shona. So maybe you sort of eventually see Penny as a character in search of an author finding herself as Bill down the end of the line, right? But Donna definitely does that as well. Donna will start to do that throughout the season. She'll start to poke holes in things that we've started to maybe not thought about enough. She does it with the romance expectation that is all of New Who up until now. She pokes a hole in that. But to go back to Penny, one more thing about the R.I.P. Never Companion. The original idea here is RTD was like, there's going to be a vortex in that. There's going to be an open portal to a different world, different dimension, and lots of like dog-like creatures are going to jump out of it. Right? It's going to be a lot of rather like the kind of CGI they were using in Lord of the Rings at the time, which was still pretty new. He's like, I want lots of big, scary monsters on screen coming out of this vortex in this office building. Now, what we ended up with was the adipose, which
not that.
Which I kind of love that as a Doctor Who story. It's like you want the two towers, you want armies of legions, hordes of CGI monsters bursting out of a vortex. You get the adipose, which, to be fair, is still quite an achievement, And it's interesting watching the Doctor Who Confidential. They talk about using AI, here in 2007 on like making the adipose like all do different things, so it looks like they're all individuals. Yes, we use AI for that.
We thought AI was a buzzword then. Holy cow!
Right?
Feel like we're in the history corner now.
Yes.
Yeah. The adipose. I mean, it's obviously almost a Doctor Who subversion choice to make them super cute, right? They're if there's any fear to them, it's not what they do or look like. It's kind of what they are and how they come out of people, and sort of this idea that the fat just walks away. Okay, let me just first say, like, it's funny. There's a line where Ms. Foster basically says, "Oh, we traveled everywhere to find obesity on this scale, and they ended up in London." Which is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Have you thought about maybe the USA? Or honestly, there are even other countries, like smaller countries, that have even worse obesity rates. I mean, they keep track of that stuff, obviously.
Yes.
But a lot of countries are way above the UK. Now, they do sort of address this and Turn Left.
Right. I was going to go there too. Yeah. Like, that's the great thing here. Like, another show, a lesser writer or showrunner might say, oh, well, whatever. I said that for a line. I'm moving on. No. And RT just walks straight into it. It's like, no, I'm going to use this to actually up the stakes and Turn Left by taking America out of the picture.
Yeah.
which I love. I love
So
that choice.
It kind of works, although it does feel like she got her list screwed up.
Yeah.
Somehow London was the first choice and America was the second choice when it really should have been the reverse.
You know what it is? I think if you look at the amount of biscuits that the British eat, by which I mean cookies, but the amount of biscuits we eat with our tea, it's ridiculous that the Brits are not fatter than they are. So maybe she was just looking at calories in. Rather, I feel like the advantage that Britain has, the only advantage that Britain has in the obesity epidemic, is that people tend to walk more, and there's more public transit, and there's more walking involved in British life, whereas in America it's driving.
Is it a rare thing? How many Brits take sugar with their afternoon tea? Do you think the majority?
I'd say it probably hovers around 50%, to be honest.
Interesting. I think in America more people probably take sugar with their coffee than Brits take sugar with their tea.
Well, anyway, there goes an unexpected pull to open poll. How many sugars?
Yeah. Okay, so the adipose are cool. I mean, a cool idea.
Yes.
I mean, and they're very memorable. Like, there's a reason they became essentially a string of Christmas lights, which is what I have behind me. And I do like that exchange at the end where the doctor's like, they're just children. They don't know where they came from. So it's an interesting idea. Again, not the scariest idea, but they work.
They were described in the script as little bags of flour. Which I love. I love. Actually, as a connection to the obesity epidemic, like, do not consume the equivalent of bags of flowers, or you will need adipose to walk away. It's also interesting as an insight into RTD sort of trying to have his finger on the zeitgeist, because originally it was going to be Botox. It was going to be that women are getting their faces injected. And then stuff bursts out, and he had this whole. One of the best things about Riser's Tale is the cartoons. He has this whole cartoons of this happening at a table of ladies who lunch, and it's the caption is "ladies who lurch" because they're all turning into zombies. I love that. But that was the original idea. So he's just like, he wasn't wedded to the fat idea. It was Botox at one stage, which is a very Doctor Who thing. It's like, isn't it a bit weird that we're all getting injections in our faces now?
Well, it's funny that this idea has all come back around. So it would be way more timely today if you think about it with Ozempic.
Yes.
Being like that is
right.
The pill everyone's taking that, the fat doesn't quite walk away, but it sort of is, suppresses the appetite or whatever. And there's been a lot of backlash against that now.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, I feel like it was all about Atkins and fad diets like that, and less about sort of drugs and stuff. So anyway.
The weight loss pills always been the what do they call it? The sorcerer's stone. It's been the thing we've been in search. Holy Grail. Also a phrase that works in this context. Thank you. For so long. So it makes sense that it would be a pill. And we didn't suspect at the time that the answer would be an injection. But RTD got kind of close there to predicting the future.
Nice.
Yeah. So speaking of the adipose, we should probably speak of the nanny. How do you like Sarah Lancashire's Ms.
I think her
Foster?
Performance is brilliant because it's so deliberate. And she has this tone. She has this way of cocking her head and the way of wearing her glasses just a little further down her nose the whole time so that she's always looking down at you. But I got to say it in this kind of really sexy way. I mean, she's full on sexy librarian. And when you throw in those heels, I mean, you almost think, wow, was this put in for the dads? Is this our modern Leela or a Perry or something?
Yes.
But I think she's genius. I mean, like, all of her line deliveries, like, very on point. Just the sheer arrogance of her and the apathy toward whatever she's doing.
Until the very, very end. And that's the best thing about her is that final scene where she's being carried up to the ship and then, as I say, literally let go by the adipose family, falls to her death. Kind of gruesome, really, in a way. Like you almost expect the Doctor to save her with the Sonics somehow. But he doesn't. They just sort of look over the edge and they're like, ooh, So it's kind of dark for a comedy episode.
Yeah, definitely. to close it out.
Yeah.
But I do think that the giving her her own Sonic was a good idea, but it's a good idea you can only really do once, right?
Yes.
At least not for a long, long time. So, but that really put her on a believable kind of equal footing with the Doctor when they sort of have dueling Sonics at one point. And it sort of creates this, I guess, way of explaining some of the plot holes, because like there's a weird bit where she says, I'm going to deadlock the whole building, which seems a little excessive. And it's kind of like this thing where, you know, how the old joke of like, well, if the black box always survives the plane crash, why not make
Sit next to the black box? Yeah.
And in this case, it's like, well, if deadlock seals are that easy to put into everything, why isn't everything just deadlocked? And why hasn't someone invented the deadlock screwdriver? You know, like it feels like there should be almost like an arms race here. So I felt like they could have done a little more writing to not need that.
Yes.
So, but I guess the whole thing is like he gets both Sonics and he gets hers, so therefore now he can sort of reverse the deadlock, even though they're kind of the same device.
There's also a little more writing required in that scene because these guards with huge guns have them trained on the Doctor, and they're somehow just allowing him to pull his Sonic out.
Right, and talk at them. That doesn't work either. Like it's, and again, this happens often in not just Doctor Who, but action movies, and they give the hero a few seconds to say something. And Daleks do this all the time, right? But doesn't make it good. I do like my action scenes more believable, and I think there was an easy way to do it here. I would have kind of preferred it if he was sort of fast talking them, and it wasn't apparent he was doing stuff with the Sonics, but he was doing it behind his back, like putting them together, and then maybe nudges Donna to hold her ears, you know, because that's another thing. Like, why isn't Donna like falling down and screaming with just like the other ones, right? You know, the Doctor's a Time Lord, so that's always his get out of jail free card for things like this. So in other words, like again, another quick draft. Again, they never have enough time to make Doctor Who and make it perfect, and it's details like this that fans like us obsess over. Otherwise, it kind of works, but it does take you a little bit out of the show that they're right there, and I think she's just ordered them to kill him. Like, why not just do it? Like, why are you even listening to this guy?
Yeah, honestly, there was a lot of stuff like that kind of struck me the first time I saw this. And I've got to say, I thought it was a bit of a mid-episode the first time. I don't know if I felt like the adipose were too cute, it was too pandering, it was too much comedy, it was, I don't know what it was, or that we were doing yet another London family. Like, not even knowing that RTD had tried to give some balance by introducing a Northern companion with Penny, R.I.P. Penny. It was a bit much. Three London companions in a row. You're having a laugh, mate. You're having a laugh. But speaking of London companions, let's talk that absolute chav that she runs into at the end there. What's up with her? Is she important or something?
Yeah, I don't know. She's definitely got some dated fashion sense. No, I mean, she actually looks really good in that blue jacket. And I don't know if I love her new hair, but it is what it is, you know? Like, you've got to sort of show that she's done something since she was last with the Doctor. So, yeah, huge cameo. They somehow kept it a secret mostly at the time, and it just sort of went out and like, oh my God, Rose is back. So, it works. I mean, like I say, my daughter didn't really remember this episode and this season that well, and that it took her by surprise, and she really kind of wanted to watch the rest of the season. So, to your point about watching out of sequence being denied by the randomizer, I might have to bypass the randomizer to do a quick series 4 rewatch with Grace.
Oh, you're attempting the almighty randomizer.
But yeah, it definitely hooks you in. Then she kind of disappears, right? So there's that.
Did it strike you as unusual, by the way, Donna leaving her keys in a bin?
Yeah.
I sort of feel like it's a thing that was signaled to Brits that Donna's a bit loony, but it would probably work. I feel like if this was set in New York, no way on earth would you put your keys to a car in a trash can, hoping that someone else would pick it up.
Yeah, what would you do then? What would you suggest? Would you put it on the ground, like close to one of the tires, like right under the front tire or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you would do. Maybe go to the nearest store, give the keys to the guy behind the counter, and say that. But yeah, in London, they're just a bit more handy.
You're right.
Yeah, the bins on lampposts, you can just sort of put your hands in right there. They're just a bit handy. Yeah.
Like,
but yeah,
there's a few too many of these sort of plot things that don't quite work. There's like the guards that get electrocuted while they're running from essentially a doorway, and the doctor sort of seems to know they're on their way.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a few things like that just kind of come in, and just there's no real reason for it. I will say them nearly falling off the window washer cradle or whatever it is, that's not bad. That's well paced because, it goes from the comedic fun of them meeting each other to suddenly this chase, and you have Donna hanging off it, and it's like, oh no, and so you're getting caught up in it. But it is like, in terms of Doctor Who chase stuff, like not really the greatest or the highest, right? In fact, I would say like you get even more, you get just as into Tennant running a little earlier in his coat. By the way, it looks absolutely awesome running in that coat. You could kind of like watch Tennant all day run around in that brown coat. You're just like, yeah, that's always smart. I remember when we talked about the
the Idiot's Lantern, we talked about this, right?
Yeah, he changes into his coat because why? Because it's just, there's no reason for it for the story. It's just like, it just looks better in it when he's chasing the monster. So it's good that they smartly did that. Spaceship, very close encounters.
Very close encounters. Yeah, which I think is also a signal to us that these are benign aliens.
Okay. So they're good people, even though they're murdering their own nanny.
Yeah. Well, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, I do have to say, like, I do like the scenes of the adipose out in the streets, but they go on a bit too long, and there's a bit too much sort of people just standing in the median, halfway across the road with phones to their ears. And I really struck me as like that's a moment that you would never get again in this kind of science fiction if it's set in the present day, because these days the equivalent of that is entire crowd has their phones out filming it.
Right.
And it's a little weird to step back to 2007 and be like, what do they do? They've got their phones. Are they just like describing the scene to someone on the other end of the phone? Did we really do that? Like, what's that about?
Boomers maybe did that.
Calling someone? What the hell? The other one's like, I don't care unless it's a nuclear apocalypse. Like, yeah, adipose running around the street? No, sorry. Cute little fat animals? No. Send me a text, dude.
So I just want to get in one last Doctor Who fan nitpick, which I don't think ruins anything, because this is literally what a fan would think. So, okay, when they start the day, when they're investigating, Donna goes into the bathroom stall, and we find out later Penny is in one of those stalls too. Which, by the way, did they just were both there all day and not know? And like, there was literally no period where they could hear each other, because there must have been periods where no one else was around. And
right.
Anyway, putting that aside,
they synchronized their peeing.
The doctor goes into a broom closet and does the same thing, and he actually takes the TARDIS there.
Yeah.
To start. So you kind of think, well, wait a minute. Why are you waiting all day? Like, just jump forward 8 to 10 hours. Like, why wouldn't you just do that?
Because TARDIS. I mean, at least if you take the TARDIS into a broom closet, you're like, oh, well, at least I brought my home with me. I'll just disappear in there for a few hours, read a few magazines, talk to myself for a bit.
I was thinking more like just pop ahead in time, right?
Well, yes, but again, TARDIS, you could never be sure that you would actually get there. Yeah, I could see that the Doctor's had enough PTSD moments of like the TARDIS not taking him to the right point.
So he basically deactivates the time part of the TARDIS. The time circuits.
Yeah.
Travels in space.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that answers that question. So
not a taxi service, but I am going to give myself a lift to this broom closet. Anyway.
All right, let's move on to some more questions. And those questions are, of course, the 4 questions to Doomsday. First question, why did the randomizer take us here?
Well, I think there's definitely the thin ice connection of the the companion that never was, even if one is mentioned in the show and one is never mentioned in the show, or at least became, only lent a name to someone in this particular show. So there's that connection. Definitely the thinking about how you introduce companions in a fun way, new companions who sort of who aren't romantically connected to the Doctor. That's what we're seeing right now with Ruby Sunday, right? It definitely feels like Donna and Ruby have similar character-based lineage. They kind of similar people, just from similar different parts of the country. And there is actually a connection to this episode in that Sarah, oh gosh, I've forgotten her name already, Miss Foster, was in Coronation Street, as was Millie Gibson.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sarah Lancashire.
Sarah Lancashire, yes, also better known for Happy Valley, Last Tango in Halifax, if you've seen any of those shows. Pretty famous British actress, mostly, hasn't really crossed over.
Oh, that's good. I just thought about that reference to the 10th Doctor wearing the same suit and just how that really contrasts with what the current Doctor is doing.
Yes, with Shooty's plan of just wearing clothes.
Yeah, that wouldn't work. That line wouldn't work on him. So I like that. I like that there's an emphasis on sort of how far we've come with regard to fashion.
I wonder if that means that the Doctor, we talk about trauma in the Doctor, like Shooty being the first post-trauma Doctor. That sort of, we can look back on his habit of wearing the same clothes and we're like, is that a sign of something? Like, are you okay, dude? Do you need to take a shower? Like, you always seem to be wearing the same suit.
It's funny. We've recently seen the Rogue in the current run, and there's a lot made of cosplay there. And I got to think the cosplay industry is going to, in Doctor Who anyway, experience a sort of an economic surge now that there are just so many 15th Doctor outfits.
And the action figure industry, there's going to be a Shooty boom in action figures, my goodness. Anyway, getting back to the randomizer. And any connections to the Armageddon factor here? I guess, again, the sort of the romantic contrast with Romana and Romana 2, with whom there was a literal romantic connection entering the picture. So the randomizer's thinking a lot about companions, I would say.
Yeah, well, especially because that one had, like you say, two Romanas, and and one tin dog. So all of that was there. So yeah, not really. There's some Armageddon.
Well, you know what? It's fair to say, a lot of people think this about the 6 episodes of the Armageddon Factor, that there was a lot of fat on its bones, shall we say. That they should have trimmed the fat, or maybe the fat should have just walked away.
Should have just walked away, my man. Okay. Moving on to the second question. What if the evil plot had succeeded?
All right, what I love so much about this one, as is true for most of season 4 of the new show, is we know exactly what would happen because we've seen it.
Right.
And so let's just remind ourselves what happens in turn left. The adipose thing happens. You lose a few million people in the UK. Probably, but also it spreads to the US. Adipose industry is in the US as well, because the Doctor, I guess, wasn't there to stop them. 60 million Americans dead. The most Americans, perhaps, that have been killed in any episode of Doctor Who, even more so than Dalek. Which only potentially killed the 1 million people of Salt Lake City.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, 60 million Americans that becomes a much darker show.
Yeah, definitely. Either way, it's going to be dark. So that's interesting. Yeah, of course, turn left shows us what happens. I was actually trying to think of, like, is there even another timeline where the Doctor just loses in this episode, which would be, the turning point for it not becoming an Armageddon, so to speak, is when Donna comes up with that pendant. So now he has 2, and he can boost the power to counter what Foster's doing. Say she doesn't have it. Say she doesn't have the pendant. And so all those million people in London die, and that's will become, including Sylvia's friend. And, maybe it's just a really darker, sort of more wounded world, right? And that would generally put a downer on things. So not really a comedic ending. Does she even want to travel with him after that?
Well, yes, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? And you could see, like, at crux points, if with the benefit of hindsight, Adipose Industries should have kept Donna out of the picture for exactly the reason that you're mentioning about the pendant. Why didn't they just set her up with like a ton of dates? So she's utterly distracted by trying to find romance. Because that is a weakness of Donna's. We do know that.
True.
She is looking for Mr. Right. And that would just completely distract her from searching for the Doctor here. Because she's searching for other men.
Sort of ascribes even more motive to him again wanting to hook up with the Doctor, which is to say for travel. Because then it's not just dudes on Earth, and in this time, it's all of time and space.
That's right. Give me access to Space Tinder, yo.
Okay. So I think we've answered it. Yes. Weirdness. More darkness, rather, that will infect the rest of the season, and that wouldn't be a great series for. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
That's right. But on the plus side, a lot more skinny people.
Moving on to the third question, which is, where is the Clara Splinter? Clara Oswald, of course, splintered in time at the end of the name of the Doctor. She's somewhere in every single Doctor Who story. Where is she in Partners in Crime?
Well, I wondered if first she was maybe Penny's editor. And specifically chose Penny because she knows that she likes to get tied up and have things explained to her in a way that will just clue the Doctor in on the big plan, because it's a bit a bit convenient that that's the moment that he's listening in on, right? Isn't it? Just as the villain is explaining the big plan. But I also think like there are just too many moments in the Doctor and Donna not meeting at the right time that like it stretches credulity that would actually happen for real in real life. It just stretches it to almost breaking point. But I think that we can rope it in, bring it back within the realms of credulity, if you get the idea that Clara is just someone who just lives around that or works around there, and she's always just at the right time. And maybe she doesn't even know why she's doing this Clara Splinter. She just always wants to, like, she's always been interested in redheads. She always wants to stop Donna for a chat. She thinks the Doctor's a tall glass drink of heartbreak, and like always wants to waylay him. Like we see the Doctor being flirted with in this episode, right, by the adipose rep, sales rep. So yeah, maybe she's an adipose sales rep who's just always outside the building on her smoking break. By the way, Penny was going to be a smoker.
Oh no! Damn.
But
she was a pipe smoker. That's okay though.
Yes, like William Russell. And yeah, so she's just always outside the building, waylaying them on their way in, just for the right amount of time.
That's pretty good. So yeah, there's all these extra scenes that we don't see.
Yeah.
It's kind of right there stopping people.
Exactly. Well, we know that Donna doesn't recognize any of the Doctor's past companions, so she's just running into Rose without realizing it. She could run into Clara without realizing it too.
So I had her as an executive at Adipose, actually. So she's a senior VP, and she's essentially the one that has advocated for maintaining a full cinema. Right? So that's complete with projection booth.
Yes.
So that was, again, another way to keep them apart, that he's for whatever reason in the projection booth, even though they're both saying they're from health and safety, but his is in the film division, which is, again, nice, funny moment, but it's a bit silly.
Yeah.
And, so she's done that, and she's also wired up the computer core so that it's connected to the doorways in the building. So, like, those can be electrified at any time. So, yeah, she's
wow. I hadn't thought of the fact that there's a projection booth inside this corporate headquarters. You're absolutely right. That's so weird. And I've got to think that this is evidence for Miss Foster just not really getting her facts straight when it comes to Earth. Like she's done a bit of like Dr. Copper, Professor Copper from Voyage of the Damned, but he just
maybe she's researching by looking at old films and decided she needed her own theater.
There we go.
Yeah. No.
Yes, and all she does is she watches British films starring fat people. So obviously, this is the fattest country on earth. I need to stop. I don't need to look any further.
There it is. All right, folks, we're moving on to the final question, but not before I tell you all about our website, pulltoopen.net, which is a great place to go and subscribe to our newsletter where you can get full notes on all of our random episodes. There's always a few things we don't get to. So there's fresh content there. Also, you can also support us with by heading over to patreon.com/pulltoopen to become a patron. And certainly we would appreciate any feedback via social media, whether you're on TikTok, that's at Pull to Open, or Blue Sky at Pull to Open, or X, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, where we are at Pull to Open 63. And now it is time for the final question. The ultimate question, the only question that matters for partners in crime. What did we think of this story? So, the Pull to Open rating system has 6 ratings.
Oh, you know what's coming.
So there's the Dalek, which is the rating we give to a good episode of Doctor Who. There's the Ogron, which we give to an irredeemably bad episode of Doctor Who. There's the Professor Hater, which we give to a not-so-good episode, but hey, at least they tried something. The Viscount Banger, which we reserve for the best of the best. The Fixed Point in Time, which is a story that is beyond rating, usually for reasons of nostalgia. And the Lady Cassandra, which is a paper-thin plot, but hey, it looks great, especially with a little moisturizing. And there's that's it. That's really it.
That's all the ratings that will ever exist on Pull to Open. No, we of course we have to mention it. I did introduce the potential for another rating in our Delta and the Bannermen podcast, where I said, look, we really need a rating that it's like the Dalek encompasses too much, because right now the Dalek encompasses a good episode of Doctor Who and a so bad it's good episode of Doctor Who. And we've rated it both. I said, well, I reserve the right to change my Delta and the Bannerman rating, if we ever get a so bad it's good rating. And we put it, I believe you put it, sir, to the good listeners of Pull to Open. And as we're reading this, there is still one day left in the poll, but you know what? You're gonna, and there's no way you can call for extra votes now. But by the time people are listening to this, it's done. It will be done. And I've got to say, right now, based on early returns, NBC News can project that yes, we need a so bad it's good rating is going to win by a comfortable margin, because currently that margin is 85.7% to 14.3%. What do you have to say to that, sir?
Guys, I hope you like my long explanations of the ratings. It sounds like they're about to get longer. Okay, I guess I've been voted out of this one. This is it. This has to be it. This is the only new rating we can give. And you know why? Because if we get any more than 7, it's going to break Spotify. There is a limit to the number of things you can put in the poll feature in Spotify. So, okay. Yes. So if we do this...
I'm burning my last.
We have to figure out what to call it.
Yes.
And then decide if this is one of them. But anyway, what would we call it? Is it the Delta? Is it the Gavrok?
The Gavrok was what I suggested last time. But I think, we've got some time here. We've got some time, like the Doctor has. We have aeons before we necessarily need to introduce this rating.
Assuming neither one of us wants to do it this week.
Yes. Spoiler alert, I do not want to do it this week. But I think that we should make this one, since it is the last new rating we're ever going to introduce. And I think that's fair. Like we've done enough Doctor Who stories now to know, like, if there was another rating that encompassed a lot of them. We've done at least a third of the show.
That's fair.
Now. We know, so I think this is right. But we can have polls in the future. In fact, by the time people are listening to this, we might have actually gathered enough potential names for this 7th rating, the So Bad It's Good rating.
So go ahead and look out on our Twitter feed right now, guys. Remember, like I said, Pull to Open 63. There's probably a poll there somewhere for you to vote for the name of our new rating, which we're not giving today.
Yes, and if there isn't a poll there, then future us, remember you said you'd put a poll up. Time to do it. I love the timey-wiminess of Pull to Open sometimes.
Okay, do you love the timey-wiminess of your rating?
Yes, I do. It's a Dalek.
Okay.
After all that, it's and I got to say it's a step up from, I think, on my first viewing in 2008, whenever that was, I would probably have said a Dalek hater hybrid. Like, I didn't hate it, but I do think that, like, I would have found justification for okay, let's never do that again. The too comedic, they're always missing each other thing. But I liked it enough this time that I'm going to up that to a fully fledged Dalek.
Nice. Okay, so it's unanimous. It's a Dalek for me as well.
Yay.
I think to your point, I just loved all the sort of parallel lives, storytelling between the Doctor and Donna. Like, everything is just nicely set up for the universe to push these people together. It does. It converges very nicely in the middle. So all that really works. And again, the adipose, not the most legendary monster of all time, but very memorable. And I think the idea that the whole premise is that it's cute and that the scariness lies in what it is, not what it does. I think that's smart. And just to sort of punctuate what I was saying earlier about this being Davies' reset, I think I'm just going to go with it. Like, it feels right, like it feels like this is New Who's sort of fully formed, and now he's resetting it to its new factory settings here with Partners in Crime, and it works. So it's a Dalek.
Yeah, it's definitely Davies, not quite at the height of his powers, but getting there. Like, he's a very confident showrunner at this time, and it definitely shows through in Partners in Crime. So there it is. That's our rating. If you disagree with us, pull from the bottom of the screen. Poll to Open is right there on Spotify, if you're on Spotify. And if you're not on Spotify, go get a burner account so you too can Poll to Open and vote your rating. Probably just 6 options there. There may be a 7th, but create some mystery. Create a mystery box and just go and create a burner account and find out how many ratings are there and vote.
All right. While you're doing that, we're going to shed a little fat, get a little lean, run into our codex and activate the randomizer.
Yes, basically run to the randomizer. And the randomizer has 2 components. Pete's sitting in the controls of one. It's the codex. It's all of the Doctor Who stories in sequential order. We've made some interesting choices there. Go check out the codex listed in the show notes. Link to in the show notes. And I am at the controls of the other part of the randomizer, the executor, aka random.org, which looks amazingly. It works by bouncing atoms off the adipose in the atmosphere. I think that's what happens. How many fat molecules are up there waving at us at any one time? That's what it's using its random generation based on. But random.org, I enter the minimum number of 1. I enter the maximum number of what now, Pete?
Well, in taking into account the entire season 1.
Oh, are we doing it?
This is, I think we have to, because this podcast is posting after the broadcast of Empire of Death.
Yeah.
So we are all the way up.
190. I make this pledge to you now, Pull to Open listeners. We will never go above the number 190 ever again.
Whoa. Okay.
Unless Doctor Who releases new stories at a very fast clip. we won't, right? Because it's going to be season 2 is going to be 2025,
right? And since we don't incorporate spin-offs,
yeah. I think we can safely say that we've done it. We've done what, 130, 140 at this point. I can't even keep count. But yeah, we're gonna bring that number down again. It's been climbing up and taunting us while the first season was on, while the Christmas episode was on. It kept ticking up. But we're gonna get that thing down. We will never be at 190 again. But before we get there, before we get to wherever we're going, including potentially Legend of Ruby Sunday / Empire of Death, like we don't actually know if they're co-joined, do we? That's an interesting point.
That's a good, yeah. Put them on separate lines in the codex for now.
Yeah,
they still haven't been broadcast at the time we are recording this.
So Let's play it safe, shall we? Shall we play it safe and maybe just treat them as one? Or are we going to take our life in our hands here and risk the randomizer sending us to 189 or 190?
Well, I do like the phrasing as one ever since I saw Gladiator. So, yeah, let's do it.
189.
Only at 189. So
189. I make this pledge to you now. We're already bringing the number down. We'll bring it down by one more in a second. But first, we have to make some pleas to the randomizer. We get one phone call, and it's not going to be on our mobile phones to tell our friends about all the adipose in the street. Pete, what do you want to ask of the randomizer?
Well, after such a cute little critter as a monster, I want something scarier. Bring out the fear, randomizer. I want a scary monster. Let's just go with that.
Okay. You're going scary. I'm going to go with let's talk more about fat and the things that can shift fat, including diet and exercise. So either let's see a...
Are you saying you want an episode where they're running?
Yeah, that's one thing. Like, I want a lot of corridor running. I want to see you really getting to work on
Next,
those
you're
abs.
ask for quarries.
Yes, I'm not going to ask for quarries, but I'm going to ask for you for a core raise. I want you to raise your core. Sorry, that was a dad joke too far.
Yeah. That's my job, dude.
sorry. Either a lot of running or a lot of food, or good food, or lack of food, or both. One place we could go to, for example, the Daleks, where our heroes are offered fresh organic vegetables.
Yep, gotta eat your vegetables.
Exactly, a diet of that, and you'll have adipose-like effects.
Yeah, just as long as you get your other diet of radiation, drug, anti-whatever,
That's right. When your hair falls out, that's gonna lose you a pound or two. Yeah.
Okay. Let's roll the dice on this 189 fat show die.
Yes. I love that we've trimmed the fat and now it's down 189. All right, give me a countdown.
4, 3, 2, 1.
43. Thank
43.
goodness.
We're way back. Way back in time to Terror of the Zygons.
Wow. You know why? This is an interesting day. I almost thought maybe it's going to take us to Robot or Planet of Spiders for a minute, because Planet of Spiders 50 years ago today.
Oh, wow.
That we first saw Tom Baker for the first time. We've had 50 years of Tom Baker in Doctor Who, and that's perfect time to go back to the Zygons. And I believe there's also...
I did ask for the fear, though, Chris.
You
I had to go with something terrifying, like the Zygons. They're so terrifying because there's terror involved.
It's so terrifying. And do you know something else? That what we have now? We have Zygon Bingo.
Zygon Bingo?
Yes.
Nice. That's true.
Day of the Doctor, Invasion Inversion.
Mm-hmm.
Terror.
That's right.
We've
that's it.
taken it not backwards.
All the Zygons you get.
Around.
All right, folks, and that's all the Pull to Open you get. Pull to Open is, of course, a podcast. It is a thing that is great to both follow and subscribe to. Those are kind of the same thing. So I'll throw in a third thing, which is share with a friend. please go ahead, share the podcast with another Doctor Who fan, casual or hardcore. I think they'll like it. I think we have a lot to offer. And I think they might even want to follow us on social media at Pull to Open or Pull to Open 63 or leave a review in the Apple Podcast app. Again, all that stuff really does help the show. And it's also just really fun for us to interact with all y'all.
Yes.
Come on back next time for some terror, some Zygons, and some of the...
And some kilts. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see you next time in Scotland. Take care, folks.
Watch the locks. See ya.